Hey everyone, I hope you're doing great and following the 3 H's of the channel. In this video, I have 4 encounters for you. Those encounters are from Maine, Eastern Europe, New York State, and the Ojibwe Nation. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, pull up a stump with me, and let's get into it. Thank you for watching. So I had this really weird experience when I went camping with my best friend Kayla and her boyfriend Jared. And this was in New York State by the Finger Lakes, in case you were wondering. We were sitting around the campfire telling stories, and then we see a red light in the forest, almost like a fire has started. Jared goes out to investigate and takes our only flashlight. Me and Kayla are scared as hell, but we stick by the fire. Half an hour passes. Neither of our phones have service, so we can't contact Jared. An hour passes. We start calling his name. Kayla starts crying. Jared eventually stumbles out of the trees. He's white as a ghost and all scratched up. We ask what happened. He has tears in his eyes, but he won't respond. He just gets in the truck and starts it up. Me and Kayla follow. He almost drove off without us. We never found out what those red lights in the forest were. Jared absolutely refused to speak of it or the camping trip ever again. In fact, his personality changed after that incident. Before this, he was very funny, very calm and kind. But after this, he became abusive to Kayla. They broke up. It's one of those things that I will never have the answer to, because Jared just dropped off the face of the earth after this. It firmly makes me believe that there is definitely some creepy shit out there that maybe we're not meant to come into contact with. This is an experience that happened back when I was 7 years old. I was just a little Slav boy. I was living in a small rural village around 50 kilometers from the Kazakhstan border. My village was pretty much in the Stone Age, to be honest, but it was very cool because everyone knows everyone, and they were all pretty nice people, generally. The village policeman takes me on rides with the tractor. Back then, it was totally awesome, and I felt like a king. We also had this guy who was an original Siberian village shaman. People would often go to him with problems instead of the village doctor. He was a man of renown, if you can call it that. I was playing tag in the woods with the other children and my brother one day. It was getting dark, but this was no big deal for my parents because nothing really ever happens there. At the time of this, I was it. I was looking for everyone for quite a while, but I couldn't find anybody. At some point, it gets darker than I'm used to, and I begin to feel pretty scared, to be honest. Suddenly, I hear a laugh. It sounds just like my brother. I move in that direction. I hear the laugh of another child from the opposite direction. I feel like I'm running in circles. I'm getting very disoriented. Suddenly, I see firelight in the thicket. I go toward it, and I hear familiar singing. It's our village shaman, sitting by the fire, singing and talking. I get closer to the clearing, and I see him sitting there with somebody else. I get closer, and I call out to him. I call out, "Uncle Wenjusha." I trip over branches by accident and make a bunch of loud noise that I really shouldn't have done. I see him turn around to me, looking at me in disbelief. He turns to the other man, which is now stood. He was at least 3 meters tall and looked at me, glared at me, and smiled with boar teeth coming from his mouth. I was afraid and closed my eyes. I heard our shaman talking to him, but it was not Russian. I only recognized my own name. I heard large footsteps coming closer and closer, passing beside me as I basically legitimately peed myself. Have you ever stood close to an elephant that was walking? If yes, you can imagine what these steps felt like. Uncle Wanja picked me up and told me that I shouldn't be afraid, that I was a big boy. He brought me home without issue, and I rushed to tell my parents, but they laughed it off, and so did Uncle Wanja too. As he left, he said goodnight and shook my hand. He gave me a little piece of knotwood that was formed like a claw. After that, nothing strange happened, and we moved away 2 years later. After this, we fast forward to January of 2018. I was now 25. A package arrived for me at my home in Germany. It looks a bit busted with Cyrillic letters on it. It's from the village, but not from my grandma. The package says from Iwan. I remember the whole story. I slowly unpacked the box, and as I'm doing so, I think, what the actual hell? The contents were the skull of a fox, a single tiny pearl, a jaw harp, and a small ring made from a bone which depicts two kissing animals. The ring was broken, but I glued it back together. I thought, what am I supposed to do with all this? I call my grandma and I ask what this is about. She tells me that Uncle Iwan died a few days ago, and the mayor had carried out his last will. He sent out 2 boxes, one to me and another one to somebody in the USA. At that point I wonder and try to figure out if one of my friends had moved to the US. I was wondering if these items had some meaning. My girlfriend really liked the look of them and thought that the skull would look really cool as a decoration in our living room. I began to try doing some research, but because my village was so small, it was pretty hard to find really anything about this for a while. I tried to ask some of the more New Age shamans, but I firmly believe after talking to them that they're all frauds. I asked my parents about it, but they didn't really seem to know what it meant. They said that there was a new mayor in the area. The new mayor wasn't very fond of the shaman, but still carried out his last will. After weeks of trying, I found out that some of the parents of my friends still live in that old village, and some of them actually had some ideas about what it could be. They seemed a little more familiar with the old ways. After talking to them, my best guess here is that these items were used for protection against evil spirits and other things. I thought back to the man with the boar teeth, and I thought that maybe it's got something to do with that. Some of the other stuff is about wealth and just being healthy. I never did figure out if one of my friends had moved to the US because I couldn't get into contact with him, but I'm assuming that whoever got the box in the US got something similar to what I got. I only have the one story that's ever happened to me. I was camping with 2 friends in the middle of Maine. The nearest house, let alone town, was at least 50 miles away. It was getting pretty cold in the night. Even though it's the middle of summer, you'd be surprised how the temperature can change in the forest. But it wasn't just a regular cold. Around our campsite and the entire area was really unseasonably cold. But outside the area, it was still in the mid-90s. We all found this extremely weird, but we were all too tired to really do anything about it. We decide to just try and go to sleep and worry about it in the morning. And then at some point in the night, I get woken up by far-off noises. I can't hear what they are at the beginning, but it's every 3 minutes this sound or sounds happen, and it seems to be getting louder and closer. I'm still in a half-groggy state, so it's really hard to tell if I'm still dreaming or if this is actually happening. We have weapons at camp, and I camp a lot, so I know that there's quite a few things out there in the woods. Sometimes animals just make weird noises. But the sound keeps happening. It keeps waking me up. The sound sounds kind of similar to that of a coyote. My car was pretty far away, so I figured that I wouldn't do anything about it. I would just let it come and go. My friends were both still asleep, so obviously they weren't bothered by it. And then I hear it again. This time, it's much closer, and it's also much sooner than 3 minutes. Not right outside of our tent, but I was starting to get nervous. There was something about the sound that was more off-putting than a regular coyote. I look over at my friend and I shake him a bit. I tell him to listen for the noise. Before the noise even comes, he tells me to basically STFU and go back to sleep. It's getting much closer now, but I think I figured out why it was so off-putting. It started to sound almost like a human, but with a really messed up voice. I freeze in my sleeping bag. I am scared shitless. It's somehow covered quite a distance without me hearing anything, but I can see its shadow. It looks to be about the size of a large German shepherd, but it has what appears to be the body of a young child, but its arms are all messed up and crooked and backwards. But, again, you know how shadows can be. It started screaming right at our tent. It screamed loud enough that it woke up both of my friends. They commented and said it sounded evil. And then one guy said it sounded like it was trying to talk. Me and my friends just look at each other, pale as hell, and then look back at this shadow. We hear it rustling around the campsite, and then after about 10 minutes, it starts going off in the other direction. And then the 3-minute interval with the screams resumed. Despite having all of our guns, despite having all of our weapons, we were still way too terrified to even peek out of the tent while we could still hear that out there. After not hearing anything for an hour, we burst out of the tent and run to the car. We ended up leaving the tent and the sleeping bags all behind, and I've never camped in Maine ever since. This is my account of being stalked by a paranormal entity. I was around 14 or 15 years old. My family and I had moved into a house that my parents had built on an old cattle pasture in the country. This was near an Ojibwe Indian reservation. The house was very nice, actually, and my parents are pleased with the contractor despite some scheduling setbacks. I'm excited about the new house and, especially, my new room, which was colored baby blue and was littered with Coca-Cola and 50s memorabilia. It was a pure piece of Americana, and I loved it. I noticed, though, that within the first month or so, the air at night has a strange feel to it. I'd feel as though I was being watched, particularly when I was downstairs, and especially when I would go to the kitchen for a glass of water. Over the course of this time, I began to feel a presence, not knowing exactly what it is. These odd feelings are what inspired me to start watching those stupid shows about the paranormal, such as Ghost Hunters and A Haunting. I've always believed in ghosts, as I've had encounters with them from a very young age, but they were very sporadic. The feeling keeps growing, and now I'm really getting these dark images of some kind of creature that's flashed to me in my mind. I was sometimes fearful to even close my eyes in case more of these images would come my way. I feel the presence again. I feel the creature is near. So I look out my bedroom window, and I saw something standing on 2 legs, but hunched over. It was almost the size of a bear with broad shoulders, tall, and horns like that of a ram on top of its head. The way the creature walked slowly on 2 legs, but would run on all 4s, reminded me of a gorilla. I knew that this was the thing that had been watching me. It looked up at me as I peeked through the window. Our eyes met, and I'll never forget what they looked like. Its eyes were pitch black like the night, and it had these red irises mixed with a little bit of yellow. It had a very commanding presence. It wasn't like any other animal. I hid in my bed at night, keeping my shades and curtains closed. I asked my parents if they ever feel uneasy or feel watched in the house. They always say, "No, why?" I said there's no reason. Sometimes I just feel uneasy, but it's probably just me getting used to the new surroundings. I got a job at a grocery store right before I turned 16, and I make friends with my coworkers right away. Despite going to a different school than most of them, we still get along really well. I became good friends with a girl, Sadie, and a guy, Nick. Sadie and Nick dated each other for a little while, and there was also Eric, who went to my school, and he got me the job along with his mother, who also worked at the store. The store itself had some really odd happenings after one of the cashiers had died, but that's another story for another time. The stalking continued. Even if I were at work, I get flashes in my mind. They were not only of this creature, but of what it saw in both real time and in times past. It would send me rather innocuous things, like my friends riding on their bus after school. I bought my own car, and I drove everywhere after I was 16. But even that was still very creepy, because why was the damn thing showing me this, and why was it watching my friends? Sadie and I get into talking about paranormal junk, as I think that she also watched Ghost Hunters, and she was vaguely interested in that stuff, but I refrained from telling her about what's going on in my life, at least at first. She and I were texting one night when I was watching TV. If I remember right, it was ECW, the wrestling, followed by Ghost Hunters on Sci-Fi. We get to talking about the paranormal again. Finally, I muster up the courage to mention to her that I've been feeling watched, and then I describe what it is I've been seeing. She says that sounds like the thing that she saw as a kid. It would show up occasionally and spook her horses. As we're talking, I begin to get more mental images. These are different. They're of an abandoned house, not that far from me. Images of the land around it, the exterior, and the interior of the house, which appears to be left a mess. I describe the house and land, and the location of it when the images come. She was shocked, as that she knew this house. It was the house that she grew up in, and she believed that what I was experiencing from then on was totally legitimate. I told her that due to these weird new paranormal sensitivities, that I could probably snap a picture of it on my phone when I felt it near. She said that this was okay. I knew that the thing would like to pace around the upstairs hallway near my bedroom in the rec room, which was right across the hall from my bedroom and where I was watching TV. It never made any noise, but I felt its presence whenever it was near. It would almost tell me that way. I feel it in the hall, so I turned off the TV and turned off all the lights in the rec room. I flipped open my phone and went to the camera on it. I slowly opened the door and snapped a picture with no flash. I looked at my phone to see the picture, and what I captured only made me even more sure of the things I was experiencing. I sent her the picture, and I asked her what she sees. She was frightened, as she saw what I did, 2 black eyes with red and yellow irises. Shortly after that night, maybe a day or two after when I didn't have work, I decided to drive to that house during the middle of the day, as I knew exactly where it was. Before I bought my car, my school bus would always drive past this house. It always gave me the creeps even then, and I didn't want to get spooked by that thing that comes out at night. I drove from my driveway all the way down the dead-end road, and then I turned left to where the gravel road came to a T, and then right at the next T. That was it. The pasture and that old house was right beyond the abandoned beat-up looking barn and trees. I had every intention of parking my car in the driveway and checking out the inside of the house to see if whatever has been tormenting me left clues inside this house. My stomach dropped as I made my way past the trees, and I saw a man standing in the open pasture. There were no cars in the driveway, and I knew that the house was abandoned. But there he was, a man dressed in black, standing in the middle of the pasture near the stable where the horses would have been kept. He was staring at me, grinning. I slowed the car down in mid-panic and looked closer at him. He was wearing a black hat, a black duster, a black vest, a black belt, a white shirt, a black bolo tie, black trousers, and black boots. Our eyes met, the same eyes that I had seen before. They were black, and they had red irises with just a touch of yellow. He kept his eyes locked on me, and his unnatural smile, which bore his crooked, almost fang-like teeth, sent shivers down my spine. It wasn't the fact that I was startled at the sight of the man, but it was that he was so out of place in every aspect of the word. I sped off, not wanting to see that thing any more. The man and the beast were not translucent as if they were ghosts, but they were just as any normal living thing. The stalking happened for years, sending me images of itself, what it was seeing, and what it has seen in the past. It showed me the land that my family lived on before there were houses, when only animals called it home, even before the tribes had settled in the area. When I moved out for college, the stalking happened less. I'd hear from it less. I feel like this was because I was away, I was gone. But occasionally, it would still speak in its own way to me. I never felt threatened after the house, but I was very fearful of it, and fearful of the unknown. I knew that it wasn't friendly, but it didn't seem like it was a foe to me either. Eventually, during college, it stopped talking to me. Years later, I go on the internet to paranormal forums. I share my experiences that I had with this thing, this creature, without mentioning where I lived. Someone suggested that it sounded like a Mishipeshu, which finds its home in the Great Lakes region and is associated with the Ojibwe tribe. Someone else said that it may have been trying to warn me about some environmental thing. Maybe it had a message for me that it wanted me to bring awareness to. This caught me off guard, as I was living in Minnesota, just outside of an Ojibwe reservation. I googled Mishipeshu, and I saw drawings which didn't really look that close to what I saw, until I was watching the TV show Grimm, which I know, although isn't close to 100% accurate, was pretty damn close. Whenever I go back to my parents' house, though, it all comes roaring back with a vengeance, especially if I stay the night. Anyways, that's all I've got. Aside from this thing, I haven't had much other contact with the paranormal besides associated things and the occasional brush. But, yeah, I typically try my best to live in relative peace, a somewhat normal life. But something about all these things I've experienced have left me scarred in some way. So if you found those encounters as terrifying as I did, be sure to like and subscribe, comment, favorite the video, like the video, share it with your friends. If you would like to support the channel a little further, as always, there are links in the description, and there are memberships and super thanks here on YouTube. And of course, just being here, watching the videos, and all that stuff, and just being a part of the community is really helpful to the channel too. And one thing I want to say is, in the story, I think it was from the Ojibwe Nation, where he mentioned that he used to watch ECW and A Haunting, I was thinking, is this guy literally me? Because that is exactly how some nights would go in the summer for me. I'd stay up to after midnight just to hear the A Haunting intro. I'm not sure if you remember it or if you've seen the show, but it was one of my favorite shows at the time. Just hearing in this world, there is real evil. There are doors, and when they are opened, nightmares become reality. I know that's a bad impression, but I used to say the intro with the guy on there. I used to love that show, and I also used to watch the hell out of ECW. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about that for a second because it really gave me that hit of nostalgia. But yeah, if there were any of these encounters that stuck out to you, let me know which one it was down in the comments. Do you have an encounter of your own? If you do, and you would like to send it in, I have an email in the description below that you can send it to if you'd like to. And I hope you'll join me for the videos this week and the videos thereafter. And there's a huge back catalog that you can go through if you're new or just want something to watch that you've seen before. I'm just kind of rambling now, so I will let you go. I hope you enjoyed the video. I thank you for pulling up a stump. I hope to see you in the next one, and thank you for watching.